Okay, so today is 15th of June 2023. No, 2024, which is Saturday. And I'll be taking this car for to have AC fixed. Is I think the compressor uh, has been acting up. Anyway, so I want to do a video before I leave. It depends. The weather is even not that bright. So this is video subject is going to be on this engine, which is ES9A V6 engine. So I want to talk about 5 bad things about this engine, and so that if you're not comfortable with these weaknesses of the engine, don't bother to buy. However, I was still going to point out solutions to fixing or preventing some of these weaknesses from coming up, or even when they do, most likely they will do come up. At least you know how to manage those issues. So let's go to the engine so that meanwhile, okay, let's go there first. Okay. So this is ES9A. So this ES9A V6 engine, you'll find this this is a 3.0 liter petrol engine. You'll find it in some Peugeot vehicles like 407, Phase 2 607, Citroen C5, Citroen C6, and the rest. So there could be other Peugeot cars that might also have this engine. So one of the weaknesses or the bad things about this engine is the starter, that's the starter motor. You buy any Peugeot car with this engine, expect that you will always be having starter failure. Doesn't matter how new the vehicle is, just expect you always be having starter failure. So what that means is always be prepared for that, especially if it's automatic transmission that is attached on this engine. I will always recommend, if you watch most of my videos, you see I always recommend get a spare starter and keep in the boot, because someday it's going to disappoint you. It might happen where you might not be able to tow the vehicle, or it might not make sense to, it might cost you so much to be able to tow the vehicle to where you have the starter replaced. So it's better you have a spare one, so that any place it happens, you might not be the one to replace it, but whoever that is there, a technician that can do that for you, at least you have something to use to swap in, because it's not like every part of the world that you'll be able to get this starter. So it's better you source it, put it, let it stay in the boot. Now there are other ways you can go around it. For example, the older starter on this ES engine tends to last longer. That's the one you find on ES9J4 that comes with it. They are usually bigger in size, so they last longer, or they tend to last longer based on our personal experience. So if you can find those ones, buy them instead, or at least, even if it's this one, the one that comes with this smaller size, which most likely is why they don't last. I don't understand why Peugeot made that stupid mistake. So know that this is an issue. It could fail anytime, so it's a big weakness. However, like I said, there's a solution to it, and in fact, depending on your pocket, buy as many as possible. Meanwhile, as you are buying, you test. Don't look at it because it looks new. You might go to market and see one that looks like brand new. Don't let that fool you. Test it. They can test it on the ground for you to be sure it's working. I've made that mistake in the past where I'll buy one, even remove from the engine, thinking because it's removed from the engine, it means it was working before the engine was scrapped. Only for me to find out after mounting it on my own vehicle, or the vehicle, or the person's vehicle I was working on, and it didn't even work. So have it tested before you purchase is a big weakness. Now the second weakness is the cylinder head covers, the oil leak. They are very notorious for that. Let me show you. So So this is a intake cylinder head cover, no, exhaust cylinder head cover for the bank one, the intake one cylinder head cover for bank one. Likewise, we have two other covers behind. So they have gaskets here. This gasket, the one here on this metal cover, is permanently sealed on it. Even though eventually you can see the move, but they didn't design in such a way that you can change this gasket here, the one on this metal cover. This one can be replaced, but unfortunately they are not even available or easily available. So they tend to leak all the time. I mean, if you have your 407 or any Peugeot car with this ES9A engine and it's still as dry as this, give it time, just a question of time. One day you open your this thing, you will see oil everywhere. So it's a big weakness. Personally, I wouldn't even bother trying to replace these covers or the gasket. What I do, like this one is, I think it's about 2 years now, more. 2 years. I use a RTV silicone gasket maker to seal them, and it has been like that. So all you need is get a quality one. There are various types of brands in the market, so find one that can last longer. It doesn't mean that when you do that, apply that gasket maker, that it eventually will not start leaking again, but at least you can be able to use the car for, who knows, close to 5 years, a year or so, before you have to do them again when they start leaking. So that's a big weakness on this engine. And when you apply that silicone gasket, please adhere to the instruction. You always find it there where you stated. When you apply it, leave it to burn for close to 24 hours before you start the engine. But people don't, immediately they apply it, they will start the engine expecting it to be able to do that work. If you don't know what silicone gasket maker, RTV silicone gasket maker means, I'm talking about, like in Nigeria, they call it locally here black gum. So that's what I mean. So then if you have a means of buying the gasket for this one, or buying this one new one, some people buy used one. I just don't want to bother anymore. I just use that. But it's up to you. There is a weakness, expect it. It doesn't matter how new the engine is, expect it, you are going to experience it. So, and when it does, don't freak out. But if you're not the type that likes having any oil leak on your engine, I don't want to have anything to do with it, then don't bother to buy any Peugeot car with this engine. So the third weak bad thing about this engine is this VVT solenoid, variable timing electro valve. A solenoid. There are two here, bank one, bank two. This is a major weakness, especially on this engine. Not necessarily that they fail, but over time they start leaking oil, either from here where the connector goes in, or from under where it sits on the cylinder head. It's just a big weakness on this engine. The previous one, this predecessor, which is ES9A, J4S, doesn't suffer this issue. It has its own solenoid too, but this one is, I don't know. So, if you get a point when it starts leaking, people will assume that the leakage, because it will be throwing a lot of oil. Trust me, you might drive 100 kilometers and you lose close to 1 liter because of this thing once they start leaking. And people will assume that the problem is from the engine oil pan, and then start messing with that place, because as it's dripping, the oil is coming out, it's going down, settling on the oil pan, so it looks as if it's on the oil pan, but most time is from here. So the only solution is to change the solenoid. Nothing else that I've got. And well, so far I've not been able to find any other solution except to change the solenoid once that leak starts. So there is a big issue. It's something that even when you change it, don't assume that you solve it for good. No, that's what it's not leaking, just a question of time. So it's a weakness, but solution is to replace the solenoid and not bother trying to change the sail or anything, because like I said, it could come, especially once it starts leaking from here, where the connector goes into. I mean, that one is done. Um, Now the fourth bad thing, number 4, is the cold start of ES9A engine. This engine, when you start it for the first time, when the engine is cold, or in the morning, or like I say, you park the car for more than 5 hours or so, I want to start the engine. Most of the time, when you start it, you will get one kind of annoying, loud, it's not necessarily a grinding sound, but very noisy. You do gra 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 gra, like see there is no oil at all inside the engine. You make that sound. But once the engine starts running, it goes away within a second. In fact, immediately the engine starts running, it goes away. Like within 2 seconds, the noise stops, and the noise will not come up again until the engine cools off. So meaning that you can start the car, switch it off, start the car, so it won't happen again. Start the car, park the car for like 1 hour, start, it won't happen again until maybe after about 12 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, you start it again, that same thing will happen. So um, expect it. This engine is notorious for that sound. There are theories which make sense that the issue is from the VTC sprocket, variable timing camshaft sprocket, on here and here. That they are usually the cause, not the solenoid. Also a theory, someone claimed that the issue on his own ES9A engine, the noise was coming from the valve rockers, something like that. So he removed them, serviced them, put them back, and the noise went away. So that he didn't need to change this. Who knows? But most people claim that as soon as they replace this, the noise went away. Personally, I won't even bother. I won't bother because it doesn't affect, it has no performance effect on it. It won't affect the engine, it won't affect the fuel consumption. It's just that sound that it makes when it's cold. So I wouldn't bother trying to open my engine, remove the sprocket because of that. It is a non-issue. It's not only on this engine. There are other brand of vehicle, as long as they have that variable timing injection system. They tend to make that number. Not all, but they tend to. But what I will tell you is this: some engine oil can actually make it louder, or the sound to stay a little bit longer before it goes off, or happen more often. This engine, this particular one, there was a time I used was 7,000. That total was 7,000, which is 10W40. Recommended for the engine actually. I just use it once to test one, and I now notice when I switch, it doesn't even stay up to 5 hours. If I switch off at that time, if I switch off the engine after about 30 minutes or 1 hour, if I crank the engine again, boom, the thing will happen. So it became more constant or frequent, unlike when I was using 5W40. It's same total 5W40. When I was using that, I mean, it only happened like in the morning, or even when it happens, or maybe after 5 hours or more. So even when it happens, it will take about 2 seconds, it goes away. But when I use 10W40, it doesn't go away immediately. Even when that thing happens, it will do then before it goes away. So it takes. So I could tell that I started observing the change when I started using 10W40. So what happened was when the oil was due for change, went back to 5W40, and that noise, the issue went away. What I mean is, it doesn't mean the noise stopped happening, but it went back to how it used to be. Like it will now take much longer time for the sound to come up when you switch off the engine, like 5, 6 hours, 7 hours, 12 hours, or cold. When the weather is very cold, you leave it for like 3-4 hours, then yeah, it might happen. Most time when the weather is hot, let's assume you drive the car in the morning, park it, and the weather is warm or hot, and by evening time you might start it won't happen, especially with that 5W40. But once you leave it overnight, it's going to happen. So that's what my own personal experience. So the oil can actually make it happen more often. So it's up to you. The 10W40 is recommended, the 5W40 is recommended, whichever one. you want for the engine. Okay, now the final one, which is the most annoying bad thing about this engine, is misfire. Any person that owns this engine will tell you, yeah, it can piss you off. It's not so frustrating. It misfire. It could just happen when you don't. Even right now, I've not driven this car for about 2 weeks. So the last time I was just about to park the car. No, as I was driving back to park the car from where I was, it started to misfire. So I got it back, scanned, it shows cylinder 5. So the point is, this engine is notorious for engine misfire, which could be caused by a lot of things. There's no known uh, cause that you could say, oh, is this, is that. No, there are so many things that can cause that. One of the things that can cause that is the ignition coil. Yeah, the stock ignition coil the car came with was the one with black top, Sargent, but those ones are just useless. So you are better off with this. This is Delphi. I've never had any issue with Delphi. Um, in fact, the very first time, ever since I owned this car, after like 2 years or so, the very first time this engine misfired, after like 2 years of ownership, was because of that Sargent coil. It was out of the 6 ignition coils on the car at that time. It was only that one, that Sargent one with the black top here, that caused that misfire. I was even on a journey. So you can tell how frustrating it was. I didn't have any spare coil, so I had to drive the car with in that condition, you know. So if you want, I would recommend the solution, if you use the coil, is to get this Delphi. The other brand that have the same design, white top, but I just prefer Delphi because so far they are like indestructible. They hardly fail. I've never come across one that failed, you know. So well, that's about it. The other things that can cause the misfire, like the spark plug, yeah, they can actually cause it when one is bad or weak, or if water enters there or something. Especially if this thing starts leaking oil, the cover, like I mentioned, which is the number 2 fault, notorious fault with this engine. As it starts leaking oil, it will start settling inside this well, the spark plug and the ignition coil well, and over time it start messing with the ignition system. So yeah, that can cause it. But sometimes if you remove it, clean up, put it back, it goes away. As long as those oil are not there. Sometimes the oil spark plug will fail. Yeah, well done, Oduton. Um, so that's one of the causes. Another cause could be, you see this intake manifold. Yeah, there's a gasket under it. So that gasket, when it flattens, any cylinder that's having vacuum leak, yeah, will have that misfire issue. Um, this is something I've experienced both on my cars and other people's cars. So once that gasket flattens, if you can find a good one, new, use, replace it or apply silicone gasket maker there. They don't use those the ones, those high quality ones. But what I observe, if you put those high quality ones, next time I want to remove this thing, you might not be able to remove it again. It will be very hard. If care is not taken, this thing will break. So the ideal thing is change the gasket, put one that is still softer and thicker, or use a mild RTV silicone gasket maker so that you can easily remove it next time. That can cause the misfire as well. Other things that can cause misfire on this engine is you see this connector here that goes to the ignition coil. Over time, there are 2 pins that work, where these 2 wires are connected to, that enters. It's not actually a pin, it's like a grip. The pins are on the coil, not on the connectors. So over time, those grip there will expand. So those pins from the coil will not be able to grip on them again. So they will be losing contact and causing misfire. The ideal thing is to change the connectors. But then if you are buying a used connector, most likely that one too has expanded. So you could try if you are lucky, fine. But then, also once you go to the point of changing the connector, if you do the cut and join without soldering the place where you join the 2 wires together, over time they start losing contact from that place. So the other thing, when you do it, solder it, you know, that means you have to find a soldering iron that you can do without plugging it on the one that uses battery to do the soldering while you are on the engine bay. Or you could try this that I do, but it's very risky. I don't recommend it, but I know the risk involved. So if you are not comfortable, don't do it. Like this, the connector. Now you can look at it. You can see the wire I put here, flexible wire. Put it here, put it on the other end. So what will now happen is this wire will also act as that pin. Those are two grid inside, so that the pin here will not be touching. So this is one of the ways I use to solve that problem, and it works. Once you do that, the misfire goes away. So now you know all the 5. There could be more ones, but I just want to limit it to these 5 issues with this engine. 5 bad things, but there are solutions. It can be fixed. So now you know. If you are not comfortable with all these things, then don't buy. All right.